Scientists say if carbon emissions grow unchecked, global warming will exceed 5 degrees centigrade by the end of this century, wiping out 95% of the planet's species. Instead, the Paris Climate Change Agreement seeks to limit global warming to 2 degrees centigrade by halving carbon emissions relative to their current trends by 2040. A peek into the post-carbon future. What does this mean for economic growth? The International Energy Agency assumes global output growth averaging 3.4% in the next quarter of a century, with living standards improving faster than the previous 25 years. Halving carbon emissions and sustaining economic growth is possible, but requires two key components. Firstly, reducing energy intensity. The key here is the widespread adoption of new technologies, everything ranging from dimmer switches and LED bulbs to variable speed drives for motors and smart grids. Secondly, it requires a halving of carbon intensity and cutting the share of fossil fuels in overall energy supply from 80% today to well below 60%. Which are the two most critical sectors for success? That's no surprise. It's transport and power. To achieve the Paris targets, the share of non-fossil fuels in transportation must increase from 5% to more than 30%. This implies the efficiency of combustion engines has to continue improving. However, what is also needed is electrification of transportation on a huge scale. By 2040, 1 in 3 light vehicles needs to be electric. That is 700 million electric vehicles globally. Low-carbon sources currently make up only 1/3 of power generation capacity. This has to go up to 3/4 by 2040, with solar and wind alone rising to 30%. What does all this mean for overall fossil fuel volumes? Oil demand has to fall by 1/4, from 95 million barrels today to 70 million barrels. At current prices, this is a hit of $500 billion in annual revenue for the oil industry. Coal demand needs to halve from current levels, with over 1/3 of the coal mines currently under production shutting down by 2030. Such massive shifts will likely require imposing very high carbon taxes. By 2040, the IEA assumes a carbon tax of $140 per ton of CO2. This translates into $45 per barrel of oil and $300 per ton of coal. Policymakers focus primarily on achieving their volume goals: less fossil fuels and more renewables. Investors, however, care about identifying attractive value opportunities. The two don't always go hand in hand. Despite falling volumes, fossil fuel companies might become attractive carbon cash cows. On the other hand, rapid renewable growth could develop into a green bubble, destroying investor capital. Deutsche Bank's Carbon Alignment Framework, DCAF, helps investors avoid these pitfalls and pick the winners from the transition to a low-carbon world.